Welcome to English Express. No glamour, no clamor. Simple explanation for last moment revision. Today we are taking up for discussion Satyajit Ray's Indigo. Indigo is not just a story about shapeshifting or paranormal activity, but it at the background of all of these ideas, it highlights how indigo plantations were set up, how the indigo planters exploited the sharecroppers, and what consequences indigo planters, or rather in this story the indigo planter, meets with. Through the character of Aniruddha Bose, we are able to manifest, or rather, Satyajit Ray manifests the background under which indigo plantations were done and made, and what problems or difficulties were faced by the people back then during the British colonial Raj. Before we proceed to critically analyze the story Indigo, let's go a little bit into the background of the story. The main character of the story is a 29-year-old bachelor called Anirudh Bose. Aniruddha Bose, who has been working for 8 years in an advertising agency, finds himself staying in Calcutta, is a man who also takes deep interest in writing. Although that's a partial way of making a life for himself. It's basically his advertising agency job, which fetches him a good, solid, comfortable two-room flat in Sardar Shankar Road, and he has been staying in Calcutta for quite some time. We also learn about Aniruddha's background, that he was born and brought up in Mongir. He lost his father at the age of 16, and then he proceeds to stay with his maternal uncle, where he completes his education in Calcutta, completing his bachelor's degree in St. Xavier's College. And having been fluent in English, earned his job in an advertising agency in Calcutta. Now, the story takes a new turn when he also fascinates the readers when he mentions that he was deeply interested in reading about the indigo planters and indigo plantations, which were mainly done back in the colonial rule during the British Raj in particular places like Bengal and Bihar. And where he also reads about how in Mongir, the place where Aniruddha himself was born and brought up, there were quite a number of plantations around. Aniruddha takes deep enthusiasm in this concept of indigo plantations, how the indigo planters were actually torturing and tormenting the sharecroppers, and how what a sad and terrible fate was met by these sharecroppers at the hands of these indigo planters. The plot of the story takes a turn when Anirudh receives a letter from his childhood friend from Mongir, Pramod. Pramod, who is closely associated with the forest department, had invited him over to stay with him at this place called Dumka, which was 200 miles away from Kolkata. And Pramod had insisted that he should not be driving after a certain time because it was a long, tedious journey, almost more than 5 to 6 hours. Therefore, our main character, Anirudh, had decided to set out early for to reach his friend's house in Dumka. But unfortunately, Anirudh is confronted by quite a number of obstructions on his way. The initial obstruction being his uncle, Uncle Mohit, an old friend of his father who comes over to visit Anirudh. Immediately after Uncle Mohit left, Anirudh, who had decided to make a move, was again delayed when his neighbor, Bhola Babu, turns up with his 4-year-old son Pintu to visit Anirudh. After tackling them, when he decides to leave, he notices that it was already 10 past 11 and Anirudh has to start his journey on his ambassador, driving it via Howrah, and he makes his move towards Damka. And as he takes the turn towards Bardhawan, Anirudh meets with the third obstruction, which is a flat tire. He somehow manages to make a move when for the second time he lands up with another flat tire. This finally gives him the idea that he will not be able to reach Dumka in the allotted time that he had figured out in his head. So, therefore, as a consequence, he is stranded midway on the road, wondering how he would go ahead with this kind of a situation. But his car was also blocking the road when for a truck driver and a helper who were on the way. But with the help of the truck driver and the helper, he manages to tow his car and push it aside to a particular place. And Anirudh decides that he needs to find some kind of shelter to put up for the night, as it was getting pretty dark. He turns through the forest area and walks ahead and happens to come into a cottage where he is greeted by a strong, mustached man. This man and his wife offer Anirudh some food and tell him that close by there is a duck bungalow where he can put up for the night. The caretaker of the duck bungalow, Sukhanram, informs him that that particular duck bungalow belonged to an old British indigo planter who used to, once upon a time, live over there. Having no other choice or option, Aniruddha Bose decides to reside at the duck bungalow for the night. When he settles himself in bed and tries to get some sleep, he is woken up in the middle of the night when he hears a scratching sound. Very soon, Anirudh realizes that there is a hound howling outside the bungalow. On waking up, not only does Anirudh experience something very unique, but at the same time, something very horrifying. It is a paranormal phenomenon which is taking place at indeed in this kind of a situation. Anirudh realizes that his body and his brain are working as two different entities. Although the mind is still in Anirudh's control, the body is figuring and featuring independently. He realizes as he looks at his hands that they have turned pale. He realizes that the body and the shape of his body is completely changed and he looks more like a British man. His voice is like that of a British man and he speaks English with an accented British voice, followed by his words in Hindi, which is also having an English accent to it. He calls out to the chowkidar, but he realizes that is not his own voice. At the same time, he also notices a few strange things that has happened. His wristwatch goes missing, his suitcase goes missing. Aniruddha wonders what is going on, but he feels pretty helpless as he is unable to do anything about the changes that is taking place at his end. Not only does Anirudh notice changes in his own physical features, but also changes around the house, inside the duck bungalow, inside his room, which were formerly not there. This is a strange encounter for Anirudh, who is unable to gauge what is happening to him because his mind doesn't have any control over his body. It is seen that Anirudh sits down to write a letter and he uncontrollably sits down to write this letter dated 27th April 1868. Confessions of an Indigo Planter. He is on the verge of committing suicide and he realizes that he had been a torment and torture for people around him. He is guilty of what he has done and he is awaiting his impending death. At the same time, it is also revealed by this person whom probably, or this entity rather, to be more specific, whom probably Anirudh is possessed by, that he fears that his greed and his unfairness towards his family is the cause of his death, which is inevitable at the moment. It also the letter also reveals that the planter wishes to be buried beside his wife and son. But at the same time, we also figure out that he is really worried about his pet dog, his hound, Rex, what fate it would meet with. Had the sharecroppers realized that Rex is around, they would kill him. So, therefore, he takes a very difficult decision, and the decision is to fire a bullet from his pistol and kill his own beloved pet. And therefore, at the same time, after he picks up and triggers the pistol at his pet and kills and shoots it, the next scene reveals how he is pointing the gun towards his ear as he tries to shoot himself. The moment the shot is heard, nothing else is recalled. Anirudh, who was lying asleep, awakes and realizes that things are back to its normal self. Anirudh realizes that he still has the wristwatch in his hand, and also the things that he had experienced the previous night are no longer the same. When he takes a closer look at the wristwatch, he realizes that the date is 28th of April. And as he prepares to leave the duck bungalow, and Sukhan Ram, who has come over offering him tea, Anirudh at the same time also learns that his car has gone for repair and he is now prepared to head towards Pramod's house. But at this kind of a situation or juncture, a lot of thoughts evoke in Anirudh's mind. He wonders what had gone by the previous night. What exactly had he met with the previous night? Was it a paranormal experience and activity solely? Or was it just hinting at some kind of an unsettled past? Or was it actually hinting at a situation of shape shifting and also loss of control? At the same time, we come to a conclusion that Anirudh is a man who knows that he will not be able to explain it to anyone, and even if he does, will anybody believe him? The story ends on this note, leaving the readers with a question, actually, with a lot of questions. Firstly, what had Anirudh exactly experienced? Is it truly a paranormal activity? Was it a nightmare? Was it some kind of a shape shifting experience? Or was it Anirudh's past which is haunting him? The story ends with Anirudh asking a question. Would anyone believe me when they heard of my experience on the night of the 100th anniversary of the death of an English indigo planter in Birbhum? This question leaves the readers in a state of amazement and awe. They keep wondering what had gone by in Anirudh, or on Anirudh rather, when he was at the duck bungalow. The story ends on an open ended note, highlighting the genius of Satyajit Ray, who beautifully depicts paranormal phenomenon with very many modern realms of parascience as well as ideas which even logic and science cannot really explain. This was the end of today's discussion. For more clarification, doubts, or any kind of ideas that you would like me to explore, please feel free to share in the comments section below. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. The story ends with Anirudh asking a question. Would anyone believe me when they heard of my experience on the night of the 100th anniversary of the death of an English indigo planter in Birbhum? This question leaves the readers in a state of amazement and awe. They keep wondering what had gone by in Anirudh, or on Anirudh rather, when he was at the Duck Bungalow. The story ends on an open ended note, highlighting the genius of Satyajit Ray, who beautifully depicts paranormal phenomenon with very many modern realms of parascience as well as ideas which even logic and science cannot really explain. This was the end of today's discussion. For more such discussion, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and comment as to what exactly you need. And I will try my level best to bring about relevant content which will be helpful for your last moment revision. Thank you.